Hello, folks. It's me again, Amanda Enderman, your trusty tour guide in the wonders of the wonderful city, also known as Rio de Janeiro. And on this video, I'm gonna talk about 5 musical genres which were born in Rio.
So you're gonna talk about samba then?
No.
Wait, you're not gonna talk about samba?
No! And this is why the title of the video is Rio Beyond Samba. And I am going to talk about the theme of samba in future videos, of course, but this video is about everything other than samba. But before we get right into the theme of the video, I have to remind you that I'm currently offering walking tours through the city of Rio. So if you would like to book a tour with me, all you have to do is click on the link of my website, which will be in the description of this video as well as in the first fixed comment. So all you do is click there, contact me, book your place on the tour, and let's take a stroll through the wonders of the wonderful city. Let's see the wonderful city in person. How about that? With yours truly as your guide, obviously. Going directly to the theme of the videos, and one parenthesis here, the names of the songs. I had a hard time finding translations for them in English. So I'm gonna explain what they were, so hopefully that'll give you an understanding and the name itself won't be so much of an issue. Please don't get hung up on the names and instead on the definitions of each of these musical styles. The first style that we're gonna explore on this video is called the modinha brasileira. These were very romantic tunes. They were very sentimental and also very lyric, kind of like singing opera. But the thing is that the very first modinhas were actually born in Portugal, not even in Brazil. And in Portugal, they were first sung in the rural areas by peasants, and then they were brought to the cities. These farm folk, they know where it's at. They were brought to Brazil in the 17th and 18th centuries. And it was here in Brazil that this musical style actually had room to develop and to grow. Because you see, in Portugal, there is a very prominent musical style to this day, which is called fado, F-A-D-O. If you want to research about it, you absolutely should. I mean, it's out of this world. And also very emotional musical style, but it stole the limelight from the poor modinha. So the modinha basically had to move from Portugal and come into its own elsewhere. Precisely here. And just as it happens to everything that comes to Brazil, even people, she mixed with the rhythm which was danced by the African slaves, one of them that is, which was the lundu. The lundu is a very sensuous rhythm, involves a lot of hip movement, so if you ain't got your hips in order, it will be hard to dance this song. And very close contact between the couples that are dancing. Yes, it is danced in pairs, and you can easily find videos of this type of dance online. Then the modinha mixed with that.
So the lyric and operatic characteristic went down the hill.
Actually, both started to coexist. The operatic part was kept in the melody and in the actual singing voice, whereas the percussion part of the music, that's where the rhythm of the lundu enters. Because you see, the lundu is very much a song where the rhythm is thrown in your face. The main instrument is the drum, so they got that, put that as a percussion in the modinha, and they kept the melody and the voice in the operatic style. So it's very much an encyclopedic definition of a fusion between two rhythms. Funny enough, when the mixed race daughter of the Portuguese modinha was brought to Portugal, she fascinated the court and the elites and the high society. All it needed was a bit of mixing. Among the main composers of this style is this gentleman over here, which is none other than Domingos Caldas Barbosa, the father of the modinha. And he was the son of a Portuguese man and the African slave from Angola. So you can say that he is the personification of this musical genre. And he was born in Rio in 1740s, a legitimate carioca, if there ever was one. Our next musical style is none other than the... Sorry, I feel like crying over here. And you'll see why in a minute. Because the style is the choro, which literally translates to the act of crying in Portuguese. Hope my makeup doesn't run. It is the very first musical genre which was actually born in Brazil. Or better yet, born in Rio. It didn't originate somewhere else and was brought to Brazil and then was improved or changed and then brought back, such as the modinha. And Rio is definitely the birth city of the choro. The history of the choro began with the coming of the Portuguese court to Brazil in 1808. And in this time, the elites would listen to the same old waltzes, polkas, quadrille, and minuets, and things of the sort. Whereas the lower classes would listen to the drumming rhythms which were practiced by the African slaves, such as the lundu that I mentioned earlier, the jongo, and other African rhythms. And those two at the time basically did not mix. Furthermore, it did not take long for the Eusébio de Queiroz law to be sanctioned, which forbade slave trading, even though the actual abolition of slavery in Brazil was only further in 1888. Though, hold on to your hats, because I will talk about the abolition of slavery in Brazil in future videos when I'm talking about the actual history of Rio. And also, at this time, you have the emerging of the middle class, which was composed by public officers, yes, the bureaucrats, which worked in the customs, in the mails, and in the railroads. So all of these ingredients, you just mix them together, let it sit, and after a while, you have choro. And the first musical groups to play this style emerged in the 1870s and 1880s. And the reason why I have the picture of this gentleman accompanying me is because he is none other than the father of this musical style, which is Joaquim Calado. I hope he approves. Making a parenthesis here, it's kind of ironic that polka, of all musical styles, was considered in Brazil something of the elites. Because, well, Europeans watching, you'll know this already, but for others watching who might not know this, if you think that polka was something like this, danced by the Victorian elites and later the elites in the US and in Brazil, think again. Polka was actually more like this in the beginning. It was a folk dance which originated in the rural areas of current Slovakia, specifically in the region of Šariš. So rural Eastern Europe. And it was danced, of course, by peasants and farmers. And no wonder that the original name of polka is Šariška polka, because it was from the region of Šariš. And the thing is that in the 19th century, it was brought to England and to the rest of Europe, and it became a craze among the elites. In fact, about this time that the polka becomes a polka mania is where the polka dot is born as well, because they named everything polka. Closing the parenthesis and back to the choro, the name of choro is subject of a lot of debate. Some say that it was because of the dances promoted by the slaves, which were called originally sholu, and then it was turned to choru with an X, and further it was turned into choru written with CH in Portuguese. CH is the equivalent of SH in English. So CHORO is pronounced choru. But others say that it is because of the weeping notes of one of the instruments. So, talking about the instruments of choru, the very first groups sang with three instruments: the flute, which was the one doing the solo, the acoustic guitar, which gave the low notes to the song, and an instrument which is similar to the ukulele, and it gave the variations and chords to the song. The choro is very much about improvisation.
So just like jazz, right?
Actually, 50 years before jazz, we were already improvising with choro. Take that. So musicians really have to be very skilled in order to play this particular style, and they seek to impede the musical instrument which is standing out in comparison to the others. So they try to step over it musically, a musical challenge, if you will. And so it became popular once again among the lower classes in the end of the 19th century. The choro wasn't accepted in the higher classes. For one thing, the acoustic guitar and the cavaquinho were seen as lower class instruments already at the time. It was in the 1920s that the choro began becoming respectable and began being heard by even the upper classes. Our next musical style actually started as a dance is the machixe. As you can see by the picture, a very scandalous dance, at least according to the elites. Because you can see here, it's very close contact between the man and the woman, so that was seen as a big no-no by the very conservative society of the 19th century. And this dance emerged in Rio, oddly enough, at the same time that tango emerged in Argentina and in Uruguay. And the history of machixe is very similar actually to the history of tango, because just like tango, it was viewed as a vulgar dance by the cultured elites until once again, come the roaring 20s, then it became respectable and danced by everyone, including the elite. Oh boy, those roaring 20s with the flappers going nuts with the machixe. Actually, it can be said that much as the Charleston was the craze in the roaring 20s in the US and in Europe, and the tango in Argentina, in Brazil, it was the machixe that was the craze at this time. And when we talk about machixe, of course, we cannot let out our very first female composer, which is this lady over here, Chiquinha Gonzaga. And not only was she the first female composer, she was the first a lot of things. She was the first composer, the first pianist to ever play for a public, which also was a big no-no. She was the first woman ever to conduct an orchestra in Brazil. So by the time machixe came along, she already was well known in terms of musical recognition, at least. So she saw the value of the machixe just as she had seen the value of choro before. So she had an eye for the things that would be a big hit. You can definitely say that about her. And she composed a few machixes herself. Though it must be said that machixe at first was only a dance. It was not a musical genre, because at first its execution was conditioned to playing another style along with it, such as habanera, such as the polka, and even it was danced with lundu as the music to accompany it. But around 1902 and 1903, that's when songs start being composed with the name of machixe. And she composed some of them, and one of them is this one over here, which you can see literally the musical sheet of it. Can't have a video about music without music sheets. Musicians watching, here you go. You can execute the corta jaca. Have fun. And this was the root of a scandal right in the presidential palace of the time, which nowadays is the Republican Museum, and by the way, one of the sites visited in one of the tours that I'm offering. So you can see for yourselves the very room where the scandal of the corta jaca happened. And of course, I will speak about this scandal in future videos as well when I'm talking about the history of Rio. So once again, stay tuned for that. And speaking of Chiquinha Gonzaga, we have to mention the carnival marches. Oh, abre alas que eu quero passar. Oh, abre alas que eu quero passar. Eu sou da lira, não posso negar. Rosa de ouro é quem vai ganhar. And in fact, appropriate because I'm recording this video the week before Carnival. Anyways, this very carnival march was also composed by Chiquinha Gonzaga, and it was the very first carnival march with lyrics composed specifically for a certain carnival street group, which was the Rosa de Ouro. This is why the lyrics of the song translating go, I am from the Lira, which was another carnival group, and the carnival groups already competed with each other, much like Mardi Gras nowadays, and the Rosa de Ouro, which in the music it says Rosa de Ouro is the one who will win. She was composing this for the Rosa de Ouro group. You have to suck up to the group that you're composing for. The Marchinhas de Carnaval came about in the 19th century as well, along with the very first street carnival groups. But before 1899, when Chiquinha Gonzaga composed this, the groups would just have a marching band which would play a march. It's worth mentioning that in Portugal, there were also carnival marches, and the carnival marches of Portugal were also a big hit here in Brazil in the early 19th century and in the 1920s. Two examples of these Portuguese marches were the Baratinha, which translates to the little cockroach from 1917, and Vassourinha, which translates to the little broom from 1912. But the difference between the Portuguese carnival marches and the Brazilian carnival marches is that the Portuguese carnival marches are slower and they are more innocent, the lyrics. Whereas the Brazilian carnival marches, they are of a faster pace and the lyrics are more malicious and politically incorrect. Those of you who are easily offended, can it for a few days, because the essence of carnival is to be politically incorrect. Always has been, ever since colonial times, ever since the Middle Ages. I have already said that in my video about carnival, and it's no exception with the carnival marches, and most of them are actually quite funny, as a matter of fact. One example of one which I absolutely love is eu mato quem roubou minha cueca pra fazer pano de prato. Literally translates to, I'll kill the person who stole my underwear and used it as a dish rag. It's as if men were singing. And he even goes on to say in the song, my underwear was a present that I got from my girlfriend. So you can see the malicious and funny thing about it, even though O Abre Alas is quite innocent lyrics also. It translates to make way because I want to pass. Last but definitely not least is one that all of you love to directly associate with anything Brazilian, and please stop doing so. This style is bossa nova. It's not that we dislike bossa nova, it's just that you've turned it into such a stereotype, like anything Brazilian, you start singing The Girl from Ipanema, that we're like, come on, man. from a Brazilian to you guys. The thing with bossa nova is that it actually revolutionized how music was sung. Before that, even in samba, the singing of music was very much operatic. Even the choro, for instance, the brasileirinho, the singing version goes brasileirinho abafou. And furthermore, the very first Carnival March, which was a big hit, sung by Carmen Miranda, which is Taí, she goes, Taí, eu fiz tudo pra você gostar de mim. With falsetto, even, and very much projecting your voice, singing loud so that everyone, even the seats in the back, would hear. However, in bossa nova, they wanted to do away with all that and sing low. Not only in terms of volume, in terms of not projecting your voice, but also they sing almost monotone throughout the song. And incidentally, I brought here, you can see in the picture, the very first verses of a very famous bossa nova song by Tom Jobim, which is the Samba do Avião, which goes Minha alma canta, vejo o Rio de Janeiro, estou morrendo de saudade. Very calm, very collected, not projecting your voice at all. Some say that this is because bossa nova became popularized inside apartments and also inside restaurants. So you didn't need to project your voice so that even the cheap seats would hear, or you didn't have to compete with the several noises in a bar that you happen to be singing in. Even though bossa nova was actually born also in bars, mind you, and it was not born in Ipanema, even though the song The Girl from Ipanema would suggest otherwise, but no, it was actually born in Copacabana in the Beco das Garrafas, translating bottle alley. Which exists to this day, by the way. You can go there if you like when you're in Rio. So folks, this is it for today's video about musical styles other than samba, which were born in Rio. And if you like the content, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and most important of all, folks, share this with as many people as you possibly can so that each time more people may know about the wonders of the wonderful city. And as usual in this channel, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!